Welcome to today's episode of the Made for More podcast. I am super stoked to be hanging out with Madison Hedlund today. Madison is a life coach, speaker, writer, and entrepreneur who helps women own their story, step out of fear and shame, and come alive to their most vibrant, confident selves. Known for her soulful spirit, both online and in person, she brings authenticity, power, and creativity into all that she does. Whether she's working one-on-one with clients, facilitating a workshop, or speaking to a large group, it's Madison's deepest desire to see women step up to their very best and truly come alive. She's also the co-founder of the Bravery Board, where she hosts monthly gatherings and weekly podcasts on mental health and thriving for high-performing creative women. So welcome to the podcast, Madison. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so thankful that you had me. You know, I love every single thing that you do. I think we connected a little bit back in the fall, and we were like immediate soul sisters. We jumped on Skype and just like we're blabbering and blabbering and blabbering. So yeah, it's really an honor. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this. I think what you're doing in your message is so important for women, especially women entrepreneurs. And we need these reminders. We need this encouragement to really come together. And I love you.
I love you too. I know. I feel like I don't even know. I think our relationship started in a Facebook group. I saw a post of yours and I was like, I need to be friends with this girl because her energy, I could feel it through the computer, and I just knew that we would be fast friends. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I just assumed it was Instagram, but I forgot and became Facebook friends, like Facebook official.
Yeah. Awesome. I think so many great relationships I've made on social media and Facebook and Instagram. It's incredible. So I'm so excited that you're here. And I know I just sort of, gave a little introduction for who you are, but I'd love for you to share, your story and, when you knew you were made for more and meant to do really big things and sort of just the heart and soul behind your business and what you're up to. So
wow,
I would love that.
I say wow because I feel like my story, there are so many parts to my story. And I think we all have so many layers. There's the business story and there's the personal story. And so I guess I kind of want to ask like what would be most beneficial to share, because I could blabber the whole time about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think really where you sort of started to step into your own strength and realize that you had something really great to share, and, what sort of influenced you, or where was that drive created from to start doing the work that you're doing today?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So
another loaded question.
No, it's great. I think back in high school, I really, like my senior year, I wanted to be a motivational speaker. For some reason, I don't know if someone came, like those speakers come to your high school, and I kind of had this vision of, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. And I mean, that was like cool and stuff, but like my family was like, that's cute, and my parents always joked, like we have a big Italian family, and they were always like, Madison's going to be famous. Cause I was definitely always putting on shows. And so I was always a little different. And I think my parents were just like, that's cute, like go to college. And so I went to college and I went to school to be a sex therapist. And I did internships and I worked a lot with like the church I was a part of at the time. And I loved working with women. Mm-hmm. But what I was finding, and in my internships, I was finding that I just didn't like therapy. Not because I don't think it's beneficial, because I love therapy in that sense. But I really wanted to move people forward. I wanted to help people see their magic. And what I was seeing was that a lot of people that I was working with at the time, they refused to see their magic. And I was like, and it's not something where you can force someone, they have to be ready. And so I realized then that I wanted to work with people who were ready, but I didn't know about coaching yet. I didn't know about any of that. And I kind of like, with trying to keep this as short as possible, I was also in the church, where I'm a really outspoken person. And I am really like, this is what I think, this is what I believe, this is what women are going through. And I felt like I was being restricted. Like I wasn't being allowed to share my reality. And I felt like people weren't sharing their reality. And authenticity is something I really value, and true experiences. I was just like, we have to be talking about this. How are we not talking about these things, such as sexuality and just like a lot of things. So the few years following that, graduating college and really like, I went into this serious deep dive of who I am. It was like a dark night of the soul. I had some family crises that I had to go to therapy myself. And I really discovered that a lot of my own issues weren't mine. They were issues of other people's perceptions I had accepted of myself. And people they didn't believe in themselves. They didn't want to believe in me. Like my family, for example, they loved me and they knew that I was weird and different, but they didn't know it was possible to do what I wanted to do in the world. And so it wasn't like, it's not like I'm mad at them and they couldn't support me. And, you know, my family life was toxic in a lot of ways that I had to heal from, but they didn't mean to do bad things. They really didn't know better. They did their best. But once I realized that more was possible, and that like, I just hadn't had access to that, I was like, everyone needs to know, like everyone needs to know this. And so speaking of just made for more, it started with the fact that I had to realize I was made for more. And that all of those little passions that were inside me in college and whenever I was leading women's groups in the church, those were all little seeds like pointing me to my thing, even though they weren't quite right. They weren't the right fit. Eventually, like long story short, I found coaching, and it's just like, I just want women to know that they're made for more. Like I want them to see their magic and to live it. And it looks different for everybody. But I think for me, it happened whenever I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm made for more. I have to tell people, like I have to tell them they're made for more.
Yeah.
So for mine, it's like, it's come alive. Like it's the same thing. You're made for more. You are made to live alive, like fully expressed. So I get a little passionate because I really believe in that.
No, I love it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why we connected, because I use that language, made for more. You use come alive, and I feel that I know exactly what you mean. And I wrote down something that you just said of, there's so many times or when you're talking with people, they're not going to hear it unless they're ready. You said something about they're not going to move forward unless you're ready. And so I think that is super powerful, because sometimes I get really frustrated or don't understand people's decisions around how they're living their life sometimes, because I'm like, I know that there's so much more for you, or, they're playing small and I can see that being on the outside, but recognizing that they're just probably not ready to hear it, right? Or not ready to step into that. So I think that that's a huge piece of the puzzle too, of just getting started, is having that moment for yourself. And it's going to be different for everyone, I think.
I say that like it was easy for me to know it's going to be different for everyone. It was not easy for me to realize that. It was like, it's constantly, because I feel like an awakening or an aha moment or whatever it was, coming into my fullest potential and really living for that before my friends, my husband, my family. And it was really painful to go through that alone in the beginning. And I was like the worst. I mean, I was like that person who's like, you should read this. Like, you need to read this. Like, I was very evangelistic about my passion, which is great for people who want the change, but it's not so great whenever you want it for people more than they want it for themselves. So I had to really learn, and that like the boundary things of like, that's not mine. That's their journey, and they're allowed to be wherever they're at. And I'm going to focus on me. And as a coach, I get to focus on the people who come to me ready.
Yeah.
And even then, like, they're responsible for the action that they produce in their own life. Like, I can only do so much. So it's that releasing other people to be whoever they are, even if it's not what you would choose for them. And as people who see people's full potential, like, that can just be like really hard.
It is.
It's really hard.
Yeah. And you're kind of acting as the vehicle to get to that place, but they're doing the work, and you're like this guiding light, helping them, supporting them on their journey. But I totally get that. Makes so much sense that you really, somebody that is ready to change their life or to do something different has to be in this place where they're open and ready for for change, I guess you could say. So
yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel good either to have someone, like, I know this has happened to me. Someone sees something in me that I'm not ready to see and I'm not open to that. It doesn't feel good for someone to be like, you need to be like this, because you are like, screw you, man. Like, you don't even know me. And even if they do know you, you're not ready. And so I think as a coach, it's easier, but when in those personal relationships is where it has been that huge growth and really allowing people to be who they are. And whenever you allow people to be who they are, you can allow yourself to be who you are. And it's like, you can't hold them to expectations that you don't want held on you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just going to go on another rambling tangent.
I know. Well, one of the reasons why I was so excited to kind of bring you onto the podcast today was because of this conversation we had a couple months ago. And this was kind of when we were first just starting to get to know each other. I think it was like our first Skype conversation probably. And I remember you were sharing, your journey, just like you just kind of shared here with us. And I remember you saying something specifically around taking a good chunk of time to really invest your time, your money, your resources into your own personal journey, your foundation, the inner work, before you necessarily reached outside and really started to develop the business or bring on those strategies and the external things. And I thought that was so refreshing to hear, because I mean, sometimes it's so easy to get thrown into this world of entrepreneurship. It's overwhelming when you kind of get here and you learn about all of these different possibilities and all of these different things that you could be doing, that you sort of, and I mean this, I'm speaking from experience, you sort of feel like you skip over that piece of really understanding who you are, what you are really great at, what you want to do, what your mission is, and you go straight into the other things. And then you go down the path and you realize, oh wait, I need to go back and figure this out, because you get stuck down there if you didn't do the work in the first place. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about what that looked like for you, and what it taught you to kind of spend time on that, because I think more people need to know that that's okay, and it's okay to allow yourself that time to do it.
Yeah, I don't really think there's any other actual way. I mean, how many people do you hear about that are like, I was so successful and then I crashed and burned and my life fell apart and then I lost everything? And you hear a lot of these stories, and mind you, that doesn't always happen that way, or people don't always share things like that. But for me, like especially in what I do, it didn't feel right to want to give without it coming from a healthy place. And I think particularly in coaching, I don't know how many people listen that are coaches. It's it's easy for everyone to see everyone else's stuff, what everyone else needs to do, but it's not as easy for you to stop and say, well, what do I need to do? And then you get really caught up as an entrepreneur in getting ahead. And it's so easy, even whenever you are doing the work, to develop anxiety, to develop, like isolation from people. It's like, why not do the work? Because I'm going to get carried away just because I'm so passionate about. Whenever I felt like I didn't have a choice. I felt like I had to do the work, but looking around me and seeing other people, I feel like they're sometimes in that place that they don't have a choice, but they choose not to do it. And I just want to speak on why I think people choose not to do the work, because telling people, well, you should do it, it's like that doesn't really help, because they're not doing it, it's because they don't want to, or something is blocking them. And I think people don't want to do it because it takes time away from what they perceive to be moving forward. It takes time away from making the money, from getting ahead. And they would rather be like, oh, I'll just do that along the way, or I'll do that later, because it's really important for me to get the thing I want.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the thing you want comes from being the person you need to be. It's not, you don't get the thing and become the person. You become the person and the thing comes towards you. So it makes so much more sense to do the work to become the kind of person that would attract good things into their life, that attracts healthy people, healthy lifestyle, a thriving business. Because 4 years ago, I was not working out consistently, eating healthy. I didn't have like a good group of friends around me. And those are all things it takes to support a lifestyle. And if I had done it then, like the other way around, all of those things would have been done from fear of like, I need to look a certain way to be successful. Only beautiful people are successful. I need to do this because that's what so-and-so is doing. Whereas now I can do it from the place of, this supports the person I am. and everything else can flow. So I think that it's all about being the person you want to be. And whenever you are that person, you do that work to become that person, the other things can flow. And that's not to say the work doesn't continue. It's not like I did 6 months of intensive work and was like, I'm good, I can pursue my business. But I think getting to a place of self-understanding, knowing what you want. I apologize for my dog. She's passionate about this too. Getting to that place, like knowing what you really want, having clarity about who you are, what your values are, and doing that work that keeps you from moving forward. I think it's so essential, and it will launch you forward into the person that you want to be. And everything will just come. I don't want to say it will just come to you like it's easy, but it will come so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I was having a conversation with my husband, which is always hilarious talking to him about entrepreneurship because he's such a corporate person. But I remember I was talking to him about, those who sort of come into this world who are just focused on getting the thing are not going to make it. I feel, well, they might, but I mean, it's just going to be such a hard journey and an unfulfilling journey, I think, because I see the difference, in this world of entrepreneurship. And I see those people who started not with this like crazy plan already mapped out. They just started because there was something that they were curious about or passionate about. And they just were led by that, and other things, just sort of opportunities came. And like that makes for a really great story, and that makes for, just a fulfilling life, I think. And when you kind of go at it the other way around, it just doesn't feel as good, I think. It doesn't feel authentic, and it feels forced sometimes. So no, I think that that's super important. And I mean, doing the inner work and understanding, who you are first, but also what you're really good at and what you can really help people with, and how you want to serve, and how that feels good to other people as well.
And I think the ability to become resilient is so important, because through therapy or through coaching, you often are faced with things you don't want to deal with, or things that come up in the world of entrepreneurship. I mean, it's going to bring up some fears. It's going to bring up like risks. You're going to be faced with yourself over and over and over again. And you can only run from that for so long. It will be exhausting trying to run from it. And I know so many entrepreneurs who end up in burnout. They end up having to take months off at a time because they burn themselves out. And whenever you do some of the work in advance, but also doing it during, like I'm seeing my therapist tomorrow morning and next Friday, because I'm having a really big launch coming up. And I know that because like things have gotten really like difficult for me. I'm like, oh, some things are coming up. But whenever you know that this is a journey, and you know the cycles of how you deal with stress and how you deal with big events, I mean, those upper limit problems come in. Instead of looking at yourself like, what's wrong with me? Get it together. You can be like, oh, like, what is this here to teach me? And it doesn't have to be a big ordeal. It doesn't have to involve a lot of shame. It just involves like facing it, having that support. And it actually like lifts you to a higher place. It like, instead of letting it come in and just like smack you and knock you down, it like carries you, like you can ride it into like an up level.
Yeah.
And it's seeing it as an opportunity of, wow, this big thing is coming into my life. I'm experiencing all this anxiety, and it's obviously here to teach me something. Like, let's figure out what that thing is. Let's work with it so I can be free of that thing. And that means that I have growth and expansion is coming my way. Whereas I think if people aren't doing the work, or haven't, ever been to see a coach or been in a therapy session, or aren't pouring back into themselves in a substantial way, they are more likely to be really hard on themselves, to be really down, to be like, what the hell is going on? Why am I not perfect? And man, just having that support of someone to come in and take you by the hand. I don't think we're meant to do life alone. Like, we're just not meant to. And it is the easiest place to become isolated online. Like running an online business. I know not all entrepreneurs are online, but a lot of them are, and they're working from their bedroom, their living room, their kitchen. I mean, they're working from just their house. And it can be lonely. And so to have those people who are your ride or dies there to support you is so, so important.
Yeah, I know. I always like to say, like, let's take the solo out of solopreneurship because
Yes.
it takes a village. And oh my gosh, you said so many amazing things there. And I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was just like doing the inner work allows us to have that awareness that we probably would not have had we not done that work. You know, the awareness of this is how I'm feeling. Okay, let's move through this emotion. As opposed to just kind of putting up a wall and trying to bust through it without knowing and recognizing that, you know, part of the journey is doing that work and going through the emotions of it.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I just like bumped my little thing. Sorry, you can edit that out. It was like, whoo, hello. Edit it out if you want to, or you can keep it real, whatever you want.
Yeah, no, let's go with it.
Something I was going to say, and I don't say this to like super praise myself because I think a lot of people are doing this, but I hear a lot from people like, oh, you're just like, you're so real. Like, how are you real? And I'm like, can you answer that as a, like, I don't know. I mean, you show up, but I think whenever you are willing to face yourself and you invite people into that space to really know you and to really see you, you have a comfortability with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it attracts people. And so I'm not using that as a formula to make money or a formula to get clients. You don't have to. Whenever you're comfortable with yourself, people feel comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Because they realize you're not trying to prove anything to them. You're not trying to be anyone. You're just existing. You just are. And from that space, I mean, magic really shines through. So if I could, give anyone advice to really shine in their business, it's be comfortable with who you are so you can actually shine. Because if you're striving to be someone, people sense that, and it doesn't feel, you can't force authenticity. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a formula. You just can't do it. So I think it all comes down to that, like, if you know who you are, and you don't have to be, whenever you know who you are, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. Because no one expects you to be perfect anyway. Everyone knows that you're not. And whenever you're comfortable with that, you can show up and do work and have it be of service. You can have it. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're aware that you're not. You can do your best. And man, I get so crazy passionate about this. I'm just like,
no, I love it. And I think, there was one thing I was going to ask you, and you said this recently. I don't know if it was like Instagram stories. Everyone needs to follow Madison on Instagram stories because you're awesome. But you were saying something about not coming at something from a place of, I need to fix this, right? So I thought that was super powerful because you don't need to be fixed. Like, you are who you are, and it's all part of the journey. And, you're going to grow and evolve and change. And that doesn't mean that you're fixing something. You're just, I think, more fully stepping into who you're supposed to become.
Yeah, I think that is my life lesson. I think that's something I talk a lot about because it's something that I have struggled with so much. And I think I've shared this with you, but I grew up in a verbally abusive household, and my mother was super codependent. And I really, I thought something was wrong with me. And it's a combination of the verbal abuse. And I was also like one of those like really weird, like different kids that I was interested in different stuff. And I always felt like I didn't fit in with the other kids, or my family life wasn't good. And so I just thought, if I just change, then I'll be good enough. And there were a lot of ways I saw an unhealthy version of religion for that. Like, someone else can make me better. They can make me a good version of me. And I tried all the things, and the change, it's so paradoxical because it was like the change came whenever I realized that I was fine. It was like all of the peace I had been looking for, the actual forward movement I was looking for, like the changes I was trying to force, they came when I stopped trying to make them happen. It was just like, I'm just going to love myself today. And whenever you live from that place of self-love, those things, like, I'm not saying everything just changes and your life becomes perfect, but you don't feel that lack anymore. And so the things that you wanted from a place of lack come with a lot more ease. So I think that's like a way longer version of my Instagram story.
No, I was going to ask, well, I love it. I was going to ask you, the deeper version of that. And I mean, that kind of leads me to asking you sort of what your process is and how you help your clients, because I know that something that a big part of your mission is helping people come alive to their best. And I love how you say that. And it's super powerful. And so I wanted to sort of ask you, and like, this could be also, you know, a way for those listening today to really understand how can they kind of start to take these steps to, you know, owning their story and understanding that it's not something that needs to be fixed, and just, you know, growing into that person that they were meant to be all along, and they probably already are. It's just they can't see it.
Yeah. Well, I think starting off, like, so many women that come to me, they're doing so many cool things in the world. They're just the coolest women. Like, I get to work with women, I mean, from coaches to mothers to nurses. I mean, these are women who are doing things because they really care about them. Awesome. And they want to show up their best because they really want to help people. Like, that's what I'm realizing, that so many of them have dreams to really give their all in so many different ways. And they have so many questions of, am I doing this right? Like, everyone thinks that I am already alive, but I don't really feel alive. I'm living by a lot of expectations. I'm really scared. And so the first thing we really do is we get clear about what they really value. And a lot of coaching is based around values. And that's something that I have found is so effective, because a lot of times when people don't feel good in their lives, it's because their values in their life aren't aligned. They're not living according to who they really are. So whenever we get aligned with whenever we look at their values and look at what they really care about, a lot of times they're like, oh, wow, I'm living for my mom's values, or I'm living for my husband's values, or I'm living for the values of a best friend I had 4 years ago who I'm still trying to impress via social media. You know, like, all of this silly stuff that it's just bringing awareness to it. And once we start getting that awareness, I really do a lot of self-reflection with my clients. So I ask them a lot of questions and give them a lot of like journaling exercises, because a lot of it's getting back in tune with that inner voice. And once you're in tune with that inner voice, it's a lot easier to make decisions because you know how you feel. And this is something that I think we get disconnected from in life, in busyness, in entrepreneurship. We're hustle. And we think, oh, that looks like a good opportunity, without stopping to ask, does it align with who I really am? Does it align with what I really want? Is this adding value? So a lot of it is based on that. And then I think there's a flip side as well, so we set some goals. Whenever I first meet with my clients, we set like 3 goals or intentions. They're not always like achieve this kind of goals. They're like become this kind of goals, like expand into this. And while we check in with those every single time and kind of like slowly tweak life towards them. But what I realize is that sometimes it's action, but the reason why people aren't taking the action is because of just some internal blocks and some fears. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is really holding space to figure out, well, like, is that fear true? And where did it come from? And why is it here? And is it still coming in? Or is it really just something that is a hypothetical? Like, what are you really afraid of? What's really holding you back here? So once we kind of remove those blocks, I just see these women be like, oh my gosh, like, I was afraid of nothing, or the thing I'm afraid of doesn't matter whenever I start living my values and living my true self. Wow. And so there's so much, because each woman is different. Yeah. But a lot of it comes back to that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love that you said is just use the word boundary, which we're going to get into in a second, but the intentionality around it. And that's like probably one of the biggest things that I help my clients with is intentionality around what they're doing. And living by your values and understanding like, okay, is this fueling me every single day? And am I feeling fulfilled? And if you're not, then what's out of whack? And usually it is probably, your values, and have you intentionally built those into your day, into your week, into your month. So I love that. What other kind of, boundaries do you have for yourself in being able to kind of stay in your best self and owning your story and that kind of
goodness. So this is something that I've had to learn the hard way too, which we always teach the thing that we needed to learn the most. I have what I call like personal boundaries, like boundaries with myself, that things like I try not to be on my phone during certain hours of the day, or, like some personal boundaries, like what I give my energy to. Like I view energy as time, behavior, your attitude, and your beliefs. And so whatever whatever I'm giving my time to, whatever I'm choosing to engage my behavior in, boundaries around that really look like, you know, what time am I taking a phone call whenever I shouldn't be taking a phone call? Am I scrolling Instagram when I shouldn't be scrolling Instagram? It's really simple stuff. Those are just some personal boundaries I hold. Sometimes I make the mistake of scrolling Facebook in the morning and being like, why do I feel off today? I don't feel like my best self. And just things like that aren't like huge, but also I've really learned with people like who to keep in my life and who to let kindly shift away, and to let go of the need for the approval from some people. Because some people just don't get it. And I read in Women Who Run with the Wolves last night, she was like, stop trying to make a cat a duck. Like, it's just not. Like, there's nothing wrong with the cat. It's just not a duck. So just allow it to be whatever it is. So, yeah, man, boundaries have changed my life. And it all just comes back to, is this serving my highest? Is this serving the things I want? And from there, kind of like creating a kind and gentle boundary, which I like to look at like a yard, like with this really simple analogy. If you are just letting anyone come live in your yard, any animals, any people, that's just not going to work. Or you can even say, you know, you think you need to go mow your neighbor's yard to be kind, but your neighbor doesn't want you to. You're not doing it the right way. You're infringing on their boundary, and they shouldn't be coming and tending to your garden. That's your responsibility. So boundaries really come down to understanding where you begin, what is your responsibility in your life, and how to maintain a yard that you want to have. So how can you help your garden thrive? How can you have a yard that is not overgrown, but is really supporting the life that you want to live on it? So a lot of us see boundaries as like, keep the bad thing out. But really it's like, how can I maintain the life that I really want to live? And so a lot of my clients don't realize in the beginning of this process of setting values, we start to create boundaries. We don't even often use that word, but we start to create these boundaries and these containers around supporting the life that they want, around supporting love, supporting their values. And it really changes everything, because once you're clear on that, you don't have to worry about overextending yourself or dreading every commitment that you have, because nothing on your plate is there because you don't want it there.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole, you know, scrolling through Facebook. I think there was a past episode, I don't remember what number it is, but I was actually talking about the systems that I implement into my life to be more, you know, efficient or productive. And one of the biggest things for me is I have this rule for myself that I don't go on social media until after I've worked out in the morning, I've had breakfast, and then I sit down to work. Because if I do, I'm like you, I get anxious, I feel stressed, something triggers me, and my whole day is like ruined, right?
Yeah.
And you're just working from this place that isn't your best.
Well, in comparison sets in, and comparison is a boundary issue. That's not your values. That's not your life. Like, why are you looking at that and comparing? That's letting someone else's values, their yard, infringe on what your yard's supposed to be like. And that's just not good.
No.
Who wants to start their day feeling like crap about their beautiful life? You know?
Exactly.
So my goodness. Yeah. I have rules around setting rules. I'm a really extreme person. And so if I create too many rules for myself, I get really like religious about them. And that is not a healthy thing for me. So I encourage people to like feel it out.
Yeah.
Because like, I just don't want to give myself to having so many rules that I don't really live. But I also then like, don't want to like make excuses for my rules.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, no, for sure. I think part of it is like being aware of what's actually going on and what your intention is from the get-go. So
because you really don't need a ton of rules whenever you are like, does this serve me? No. Okay, there's your answer. Like, is this serve my values? Does it uphold my highest self? Well, no. But I was going to jump backwards just a sec, because I forgot to mention this, and I think it's so important. It's regarding just kind of like plowing through the work, and just speaking to entrepreneurship. I think it can be so easy to plow through the work in positivity, gratitude, like that doesn't serve me, goodbye, get out of my life, negativity, without ever stopping to look at the things that like are making us sad. And I think that like giving space for being human is so important. And that's actually something with my clients that I work a lot on, because they are highly driven women. They are women who have big dreams, like I said earlier, and they don't want to make space for pain and sadness because that's not fun. You know, they don't want to have a boundary to have that in their life. But sometimes we have to have those expression of emotion, like freedom to express your emotion, because those emotions are pointing you to like, well, what do you value? What is a part of your life that you want to support? And if you're having negative emotion, it needs to be acknowledged. So either it can be released or that a shift can be made. Because if we just keep avoiding that negative emotion, we're not actually aligning our life to what our soul is telling us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And I don't think enough of us do that. Like I'm thinking about myself too. And when you have that negative emotion, I feel like your instinct is to just like, nope, not going to feel like that. And just like,
get out,
push it to the side. But if you actually took some time to sit with it for a minute and ask yourself, okay, why am I feeling like this? Like, you know, and having that conversation with yourself, I guess you could say, is really important. It is very, game changing for, you know, how you move forward and operate in a better way. But yeah, not enough people, our instincts are not around sitting with that. We're just like, want to feel like that. And
the messaging in the self-help world isn't around that often either. It's often around like, live your best life and never feel sad and always be happy, always be on, and high performance and like biohack everything, which I actually love. Like I'm super nerdy and love like the biohacking. I have a gratitude journal, but I think these negative emotions, that's part of our journey and we cannot avoid that. I don't believe in sitting in it forever, but I do believe in acknowledging it so that you can be free. Because if you don't ever acknowledge those feelings, like for example, say like whenever I was working my waitressing job and I was also coaching in the day and then waitressing at night, I had so much frustration that was my life. And I just kept telling myself, just be grateful. Like, just be grateful you have a job. Just be grateful that this is where you're at right now. You know, and I was just like, I was so mad at myself that I was not happy with it. I mean, and I was like, in general, I'm like an 8 out of 10. Like I'm like pretty happy, but I was like, not good enough. Like be happier, be more at peace with this. And once I realized that unhappiness was actually just pointing me to my desire, and it didn't have to be a huge thing. It didn't have to be like, oh, your life is miserable. And it didn't like, I don't know, it didn't make my life any worse to acknowledge it, but acknowledging it made me realize what I really wanted. And once I realized what I wanted, it propelled me forward. And I got out of that job like a couple months later. It wasn't very long until I was like, okay, goodbye. I gotta go. And I didn't leave on bad terms because I didn't allow the negativity to become like a huge part of my life, but acknowledging it pointed me back to my purpose.
Yeah, no, I love that. Makes so much sense. I can totally resonate. It's like, it's a good thing to feel that way because it does, like exactly what you said, it points you towards what it is that you're really after. It like validates that you're having this experience for a reason. You're trying to tell yourself what you really, really want. And it's instead of, you get to choose how you see it, basically. You get to choose if you want to see it in this negative way or look at it in a different light. So
it's the same thing with fear. I mean, I have this big project upcoming and I've had so many fears around it. And it's like that can either cripple me, or what it's been doing is I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope people know how amazing this is. Like I care about this so much. And my fear is that people won't know how amazing and how much it can help them. It's not like fear, like I should stop doing this because this is so scary, it's going to wreck me. It's just like, allowing yourself to really care that much is really vulnerable and it's really terrifying. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
But if you don't allow yourself to fully care, your passion won't come through when you're talking about it. You won't light up as much because you're suppressing the full range, because we're human. It's not about being happy. It's about living alive, right? It's about whenever you're fully alive, that means you're a human.
Mm-hmm.
It means you have full range of emotion.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I used to never cry. I'm crying now. That's good.
No, I love that. Makes so much sense. Being fully alive means that you're human and you are supposed to be having this full range of emotions. And there's no good or bad. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of life. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love this conversation today. We always have the best conversations.
I get so excited. I'm like, I don't even know if we should be posting this online, because I'm just like, I can't like contain myself in my seat. This always happens, like every single time I talk about this stuff.
No, it's amazing. But tell everybody sort of what you have coming up, and how they can get to know more about you and just follow your journey, because honestly, you're so inspiring. And I think it's funny that you mentioned, you're like, I'm not trying to be, cocky, but like, you own who you are. And that was one of the things I was like, you do this really well. And I think that more people could benefit, just like, and I know I've started to do it more just from watching you. So
I will say it didn't always come easy. I was so worried that people were going to be like, who does she think she is? Like, I had all of those thoughts in the beginning, but the thing is that those people fell away and they're not following anymore, because that's not who I was meant to talk to begin with. So if any of you guys are feeling that like, oh my gosh, like so-and-so is going to look at me, like they probably will. And they're going to, you're going to be just fine. The first person who tells you like, hey, you're an idiot, and then you realize you survive, it's amazing, because you're like, yes, I lived through that terrible, awkward interaction.
Yeah.
And now I can keep moving on and reaching the people who I was meant to reach. So anyway, I'm on Instagram with @Madison Hedlund. My website is madisonhedlund.co. And I'm super excited because I think with where you're posting this episode, in the next week or two, I'm launching a free 3-part training on boundaries for people pleasers, and really just discovering where you begin. So this is that knowing who you are, understanding who you are, and then shaping a life of boundaries around that, whether it be because you're a people pleaser and you can't say no and you're fulfilling expectations, or whether you need to have some like super hard conversations, which I think at the core, every single person I've ever coached, I created this training because one, I needed it 5 years ago, so bad. And every single person I coach, I'm like, how can I jam pack all of this information and just like give it to you so you have it as a resource? So anyway, it's coming out in the next couple of weeks. So if anyone wants updates on that, they can download. I have the free journal guide, which is just an awesome resource as well.
Oh my gosh, I have it right here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Post-it notes all over it, but like, yeah.
That makes me so happy. So I get awesome feedback of women just like, whoa, I've never asked myself these questions before. And it's free, and it's 31 days of just kind of like prompts to help you get started on that self-reflection, because not everyone can afford coaching, and I'm aware of that. So I'm hoping to be producing things that, I mean, knowing yourself doesn't have to be for wealthy people. No. It doesn't have to be for entrepreneurs who are already making 6 figures. It can be for anybody. So there's the free journal guide. I'm always blabbing on Instagram stories, like you already said. And then the free 3-part training comes out in the next couple of weeks. And if they get the journal guide, they'll be the first to know about all of that.
Awesome. I will link everything in the show notes for this episode, but thank you so much for today, Madison. This was super fun.
Am I beaming? I feel like I'm beaming. I love talking about this. Thank you so much for having me, and for not seeing me as a total crazy person, but embracing all my crazy.
Yes.
Soul sisters.
I love you.
It's amazing. Thank you.